Right, hi everyone, my name's Troy Newman and my project's called Royal Shipbreakers Opportunistic Housing and it's based at Newcastle Beach. So the year is 2020. Rampant speculation combined with a severe downturn of natural resource exploitation has rendered the once thriving mining sector into obsolescence. So as a result of this financial crisis, property, financial and planning regulations have all been relaxed. From this, two conditions form the architectural strategy for the whole project. First of all, first condition is the opportunity of pre-made structures and components and the opportunity within Newcastle Harbour. The second condition, as a result of the busting property market, is we see excess space within individual units as a profitable commodity. So the existing site conditions is where the Royal Newcastle Hospital stood for 190 years, which has now been turned into high-end residential complex complements of Mirvac and Alexander's. The basis of this project is a quote from Enrique Morales, and that is that projects never finish, they enter successive phases. And from this basis, the idea of the architecture was that it was an ongoing building process. It's not finite, it's not something that's decided on by the architect himself, but rather empowering the clients. So starting to look at the individual ship fragments and identifying that as I said, the first condition as a pre-made, prefabricated, embodied energy product, and just giving the project a second life and reusing these materials. So exploring these fragments spatially, as you can see in these models here, are some of the examples. But you're starting to explore these fragments as three-dimensional space and how one of these fragments could be used on its side, or rather be turned on its side or upside down, and just how that can create two walls and a roof, or two walls and a floor, and then having other components that go into it too. So this exploded axo, which is shown over here as well, starts to detail the assembly of the components and the amount of components that are already pre-made and pre-found, and just how they can be assembled to create an habitation. So this is a worked up plan. I'll give you a handout if you want to really read the documentation on it. But this is just showing the potential using one of these fragments, one of these ship hulls, this one in particular which I focused my working drawings on. So starting to look at the planning overall, you can see the key plan down the bottom left corner here, but I'm just taking you through the detail part first. And this is where the second condition of excess space as commodity and profitable commodity starts to take hold. Is this a pointer?
Excuse me, Troy.
Yeah.
Could you clarify for me, because I don't know the project, what size the fragments are that you find?
These are at 150.
Okay.
So it's variable, it just depends as it's salvaged.
So for example, that one, what size is that?
They're about a bit over 4 metres, so that's about 8 metres high.
8 metres.
So this model's 1 to 100, 500, 10, 50.
And are you drawing the fragments in a different colour or some way identifying them, what's the fragment and what's new work somehow in the drawing?
Well, you can see here, and I'll give you this handout now.
Just so we know what we're looking at.
In this handout, there's an existing plan and a proposed plan. But you can start to see on that plan there, the grey shaded, this internal part is the existing and the proposed is the textured one on the outside. And the strategy right from the original conceptual idea was to focus on the service cores as an opportunity, because on the outside, on that wall there, is a blank firewall, and seeing that as an opportunity for access, light, services, water, electricity, and that was the basis of the project. But then taking that a step further, the overall strategy, which you'll see in a later plan, was, and as I mentioned, the excess space within apartments. You can start to see in this apartment here that if they give off a portion of their apartment space and for example, sell that off, then it gives the potential for added density by using these fragments. So you see in building these new apartments that the scaffolding and the temporary structure and the new decking that comes out, this is to the northern side, to build these then creates, it's a give-take relationship, how these apartments can potentially give off some of their space, but then they gain it back to this open northern side. And the strategy for these bigger apartments, this one here, if you look at the existing plan, was a 2-bedroom one. But say how it had a secondary bathroom, by just moving that wall and putting a new doorway in, and all of a sudden you've got existing services, and then if need be, add an extra fragment onto the outside of it to create an outdoor space. You can box that in. It's not quite, it's up to the user to define it, but that was the strategy all along. So in some of these larger apartments and then further around on the key plan, if they've been, because of the financial guise under the project, which it speculates that they can be chopped up, they can be re-subdivided as need be, and in those documents you've got the existing proposed plan. So most of my focus for this second semester has been with the components and the detailing, because the project for me was always about the reuse of these components which already exist. So this, for example, is a 1 to 10 pivot door. You can jump up and have a play around with it. But essentially, I spent quite a bit of time getting all of these components working. So from the use of structures, components that are already found, and they can be reused to make, it's all out of mild steel. There's a couple of samples there. This door, well, it's actually a display case / sliding door. This is, again, showcasing some of the detail that I dived into. So sliding door mechanism. This is a reuse of the threaded rod tap component, and then so you've got the pivot fitting. This spins around. So I'm just going to come off it, pull it too far, but the idea being that the threaded rod, as you twist this around, so you open the door, twist the rod around, and then this threaded rod becomes a locking mechanism as it has a female component. As you wind it up, that locks it. These are a couple more components that I've made up. A lighting spindle, and should work. The light fitting. So this is showing just, again, the reuse of particular items that are found on site, and it's just showing a pulley system on a spindle that rotates, and it's just gives a bit more flexibility to these apartments. This is a candle. I actually don't have a lighter, but it's just, if you get up, you can see the old gas fitting, and it's just a copper pipe, as a reuse. So these are some of the details we're just talking about: the sliding door, the tap fitting as a door, the gas holder as a candle. So this is exploring how one of these fragments, with the use of these components, can then become habitable. So showing the door, the sliding door, the lighting fixtures. So essentially in those handouts that I've given you, I envisaged the project and the strength being as the detail being more of an open source guide, because it's, as the architect for the project, it's not about me saying this is exactly how it's going to be. It's more about saying these are the opportunity that we've got available in the harbour. It's about an individual client going down there to the salvage yard and saying, I want that component, I can make that component, and then with the use of this open source guide that we're starting to develop. So this is only part of quite a large document that we've got here. And so we see that in the same pretense as a wiki house, it's open source. So these components it's a basis to design from that. For this project I've designed, but it goes into a larger catalogue that people can adapt and change, and as a basis, and it's seen as an open source guide for the future development. So we start to see the section throughout the site, and again these imageries and drawings, it's not saying this is the hard and fast way and this is it. It's, as I said, and from the Morales quote, it's about an ongoing building process. These are just showing you snapshots in time. It's an ongoing thing. It goes on forever, really, as many ships are. So this is the plan overall, and again, it's just showing an instance in time. So we can see the existing here, and then the same idea, the same strategy throughout the whole site. So it's not about blocking off these, but it's about extending these apartments out and dividing them up. Some of the larger apartments that had a second and third bedroom, for example, but then under this economic crisis that they're in, that maybe they start to sell off this excess space, and then they can pay for it that way. That hasn't worked. There should be a time lapse. Can I?
Yeah.
View that file? So this is just a short 10-second clip about showing the potential. I've done a time lapse on this model, just showing the accretional nature of this. So just as I was building. And yeah, I just finish on that elevation over there.
Yeah. Good.
That's it. Yeah.